Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond is finally hitting theaters in the United States this weekend, and it's time to dive in and rank all 5 of Daniel Craig's James Bond movies from worst to best. I'm really excited to be doing this. I'm really excited to hear your guys' thoughts as well, so make sure to leave a comment on what your ranking is, and understand our opinions will probably be different because this is my ranking, but I'm gonna have fun discussing that down below with you guys. And also, if you guys are new here, hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on movie content like this over here on a daily basis. Without further ado, it's time to dive into all of Daniel Craig's movies from worst to best right now. Coming down at my number 5 is going to be Quantum of Solace. Now, I was pretty excited for this one, I remember back in the day, because I loved Casino Royale, like to pieces. That is the movie that actually made me really come to love the James Bond franchise and love Daniel Craig as James Bond himself. But for me, overall, Quantum of Solace is an enjoyable action film at best. There are many different issues that kind of preside inside of here, and one of the biggest issues is the villain. I found the villain for this movie to be a complete waste of time. I can't even tell you what his name is. I just remember it was something Grain or Grain Planet, and I never cared to revisit this one at best because of the villain. But as a pass-through during a marathon, it really isn't that bad. I think this movie gets way too much flack as really much put out there, and there are way worse movies out there. The action, while edited very weirdly, was typically how action was developed during that time period. And if you look at every James Bond movie, most action and most of the vibe and the modernness is what follows throughout theirs. Whether you go back to the Sean Connery days, the Pierce Brosnan days, or even the Daniel Craig days, whether the year and substance to that is the kind of film that we were getting. And Quantum of Solace, while it doesn't hold up fully on those, the thing that it does hold up on is Daniel Craig's Bond and the continuation of his character. I really love what they were able to do with his character in here, even though there was a lot of issues behind the scenes with the script. I found this movie to still be enjoyable and kick a lot of ass. The action's not as memorable as it should be, but for me as a James Bond adventure, I still enjoy this one. It's just not one of the ones that I decide, hey, I'm going to watch this one today. No, I would rather go watch some other different James Bond movies. Bring me down to my number 5, and my number 5 is Spectre, which I know a lot of people hate this movie. When it comes down to Quantum of Spectre, one of these two are going to be your least favorite. But honestly, I hadn't seen Spectre until just a couple weeks ago when I was in preparation for No Time to Die. When the film was released, I heard so much bad reviews about it, I said, alright, I'll skip that one. Being the good critic I am, I needed to do my research to dive into this movie before No Time to Die, and thankfully I did, since No Time to Die is pretty much kind of an epilogue to Spectre. Actually made me appreciate Spectre just a little bit more, and that's the reason that it's actually above Quantum of Solace. If you take out the amazing opening action sequence within here, within the whole Day of the Dead scenario with the mask and all that, and the whole one-shot take, it was just stunning what Sam Mendes was able to do with that. Even take out some of the more intriguing aspects of the story, and really much how it all connects to all of James Bond's adventures beforehand, it's just fine. It's enjoyable, and I think for me, the best thing about this is watching Daniel Craig as this character. I really liked watching Daniel Craig's James Bond really much go about this and try to find out, what is this mystery? What is Spectre? How is it connected to everything? And just the certain instances, there are moments in here that are perfection. While I don't love everything within the story, and again, I really do think No Time to Die actually elevates this movie just a hair, the thing that I absolutely loved about this was, again, Daniel Craig's relationship with Lea Sedux, which I probably just completely butchered that name, but I do love her as an actress. I think she is phenomenal, and probably one of my favorite Bond girls overall, especially because of all the development they give her in this and No Time to Die. Lea Sedux, which, again, probably butchering, I love her in this, and I love their development, and even though I do think it's a little bit rushed for their relationship to really grow, No Time to Die expands on that a little bit more, and again, gives me more aspects to understand why they truly fell in love with each other during Spectre. Adding in there a little bit more, for me, one of the big aspects of wanting to see Spectre was Christoph Waltz as Blofeld. That is a perfect casting right there. Even though I don't think they used him enough, because a lot of the time when it comes down to Bond movies and the villains within them, there's two elements that I look for. It's the presence of them, and if they're not in the movie fully, is their presence truly felt? And the other thing is if they are in the movie all the way, how are they used? And for me, Blofeld, I felt like he wasn't personally used as much, and while his presence is there, it mostly felt like the presence of Spectre was there, not him per se, until really much the third act, and I feel like the third act kind of teeples over a little bit in its direction and what it was trying to do. Even with that said, I found this one to be enjoyable at most, and I like Spectre. I just don't love it. Brings me down to my number 3. And again, if you guys are following along, make sure to comment down below your guys' ranking, is making sure to also hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking movies over here on a daily basis. Once again, though, my number 3 is the brand new James Bond movie, No Time to Die. I've gone back and forth of deciding if this was going to be my number 2 or my number 3. I've settled on my number 3 for now, because I do think on certain rewatches and over years, this one will just expand more, because I can't get this movie out of my mind. I want to see this film again right now, and I need to, because it is one of the best movie experiences that I've had, especially for a character that I've become so attached to over the years. Pretty much, if you really look back, when Casino Royale had come out, I was only like 10 or 11 years old. So I have grown up fully with him, and I really per se this as an emotional arc for a character. The last time a character this much really invested me into something and how an emotional journey can really much pay off was Logan with Hugh Jackman, because I followed every X-Men movie up to then, and then when it ends, it's like, oh my god, that whole movie, I was emotional because I knew this was his last outing, and the same thing can be said for No Time to Die, and I have that emotional attachment to him. Now, if you don't, then you're going to feel completely different than I do, but I do think this is one of the most pure emotional character journeys for a character of James Bond. Probably the most yet. I really feel like when it comes down to James Bond, a lot of the movies are just mission here, not that much development, compared to what Daniel Craig's movies have been about, and I feel like No Time to Die just connects it all and brings it to life in such a fabulous way that if you've been following from the start, you are really about to get all of that energy and all of that satisfaction brought into a wholly satisfying movie, because it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. And, you know, we're all going to feel different about a movie. That's totally fine. I did not feel that 2 hour and 45 minute. By the time it ended, I was in tears because, again, that was my final time seeing Daniel Craig as Bond. And I'm already missing him. I want more with him. In fact, to the point of I actually went back and bought Bloodstone and some of the other James Bond games for the PS3 that have him in it. Even though I know some of them are terrible, I just need more of him, and I want more James Bond adventures right now. Again, No Time to Die has some of the best action set pieces that we've ever seen in a James Bond movie that had me on the edge of my seat. Every car chase, compared to what you look at Spectre and Quantum of Solace, feels real and feels engaged and feels intense. You actually feel like there are stakes involved with each and every one of them. And even adding in there is a one-shot take scene that's up a staircase, and it is fabulous, and I loved every moment of it. Even if you take out the action, I mean, it really comes down to the story. How does this conclude? And for me, as an emotional journey, I loved it. I loved how much we had expanded and grown upon in this Bond as a retired 00 agent, and how does that feel when your past or someone's past involved with you comes back to haunt you? Being an epilogue to Spectre, it makes you appreciate Spectre just a little bit more, and even going past that and also being a sequel to Spectre and just in general all of the other 00 films that we've gotten with Daniel Craig, it's a phenomenal conclusion, and I just feel like it's wholly passionate. From Cary Fukunagawa's directing, which is fabulous, to the cinematography, to even the score from Hans Zimmer being one of the best of any James Bond movie, and probably one of Hans Zimmer's best as well. I love this film, and I just found it to be great. And I haven't talked a lot about, of course, Rami Malek's villain in here, who I actually think will grow on me more. The more and more I've sat on him, the more and more I've actually loved his presence and the way that they were able to use him. Like we discussed earlier, when it comes down to Bond villains, it's either the presence or the performance. Rami Malek, his presence is felt throughout the entire movie, from the very first scene you see him to the very last. And of course, other than just the presence you feel from there, it is his performance that is creepy and horrifying, and Fukunaga really much inflicted this horror vibe to it. I compare this movie pretty much being Dr. No, the very first Sean Connery James Bond movie, to Skyfall, and that is exactly what No Time to Die is. I love this movie, and I can't wait to see it again. And at my number 2, we have Casino Royale, the movie that got me into James Bond fully and really much made me fall in love with Daniel Craig's James Bond. I loved this film with such a hard passion to it all. I think Daniel Craig is such a phenomenal introduction to as a 00 agent, and really much this is the origin story of him. This is the origin story of James Bond, and we haven't seen that approach yet. And even adding in there, what I love about this movie is that it's not about the action or the style of that all. It is very much more about the story. And as a pure James Bond experience, the thing that I love about these top 3 movies, whether you look at No Time to Die, which really much plays around with the gadgets of James Bond and some of the more pure isms of it that I feel like some of the James Bond movies have missed in the Daniel Craig era. But when you look at number 2, my second one, Daniel Craig, the very first one, Casino Royale, For me, when it comes down to this movie, the thing that I love about it is the way that it's really able to intersect and bring this character to life. And while there's not all the gadgets and gizmos and stuff like that, it is purely a James Bond film. From the seduction of his character to all these women, and even in general, adding in Vesper, played by Eva Green, who is phenomenal and is truly my favorite Bond girl to this point. I loved her in here, and I love their relationship and in general their banter, their chemistry. It sparks off all this beauty into it. And even speaking in, a great James Bond movie needs a great villain, and Mads Mikkelsen is exactly that. Performance and presence is absolutely throughout the entire movie as you're trying to understand and trying to get ahead of him in the game and trying to figure out what is his end game. The torture sequence between him and Daniel Craig in here is phenomenal and always keeps me on edge. I love this movie with pure passion. Again, not the most bombastic and out there in your face action scenes within this one, but what this movie does so well is its story, its intellectual, thought-provoking elements, and in general, bringing to life the James Bond character into the Daniel Craig era. Of course, at my number one, it's probably going to be a lot of your guys's as well. It is Skyfall. I've always gone back and forth if Casino Royale or Skyfall was my favorite, and right now I'm falling on Skyfall to the point where I've actually seen Skyfall 3 times within the last month to really make up this decision. I love this movie. Sam Mendes is directing was firing on all cylinders. The cinematography from Roger Deakins easily creates the best looking James Bond movie ever made. The score is phenomenal, and adding in Daniel Craig's personal performance in here, which again, if you look at personal performances, No Time to Die is personally my favorite performance of his for James Bond, but Skyfall is right then and there. But getting that more introduction, finding out more about the past of M herself, played by Judi Dench, who is also great in here, because I always love their banter, and we got a lot more of that in Quantum of Solace, and then it expands into Skyfall. The movie itself opens into such a fabulous delight, and as always, I loved Adele's score and music in here, and the opening song. The James Bond movies, when it comes down to the openers, that is also a big way of how it reflects and how it brings you into the mood of this. And these top 3, each and every one of them did it. Whether it's No Time to Die's opening with Billie Eilish, it's Chris Cornell's opening with Casino Royale, or of course Adele's with Skyfall, it is always just so brilliant, and I love it. And Skyfall, again, other than just taking out the technical achievements this movie does, it is a flat-out awesome movie with its action set pieces, and probably the most memorable villain for me out of the entire James Bond franchise, besides Dr. No himself, and a couple others in mind. But really much, when you look at this movie in full force, Silva, played by Javier Bardem, so brilliantly brings this character to life in such a horrific way that really much is a scary character. These villains that James Bond goes up against can be at times horrific monsters. We see that with, of course, Rami Malek's in No Time to Die, but the same thing goes for here in Silva. He's such a memorable character that wants to stop at nothing to get his revenge, and you really much feel this through and throughout. And honestly, this movie just builds and builds on every single act to the point to when you get to the the third act in that entire element, whether it's the technical achievements, whether it's the action, whether it's the intensity of this all, you don't know what's going to happen. And Skyfall truly is a masterpiece at itself, and it's absolutely my favorite James Bond film to date, and as well as my favorite Daniel Craig James Bond movie. But that's my ranking of all 5 Daniel Craig James Bond movie, guys. Make sure to comment down below, let me know your guys' thoughts. Let's hear those rankings. Again, we're all gonna feel different, but that's totally fine, as well as making sure to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking movies over here on a daily basis. If you want to see movies early like me, head on over to Sam Sean Films on how to see films early. We give tons of cool tickets out over there, and of course, just a big thank you to you and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, because without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. So of course, until next time, stay classy.